Welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com. This is THI publisher Andrew Jones. It is time for another UNC basketball recruiting podcast. And joining me, as he almost always does, our director of basketball recruiting, Mr. Clint Jackson. What's up, Clint?
Doing good, Andrew. Doing good. You know, I love talking recruiting. As been locked down in this house for quite a bit. So anything I can do to step out of my normal day-to-day is appreciated.
Yeah, I've been super busy building up toward what I call the end of my season, which is usually the end of April. So I've been so swamped, it almost hasn't felt a whole lot like the quarantine or a lockdown or anything like that the last couple of weeks, because I'm in my office here at home 14 hours a day and then walking the dog an hour a day, that kind of thing. So it's kind of been normal for me, but I'm afraid that in a couple of days when I'm unleashed into society, that there won't really be much of a society to be unleashed into.
It's just going to be interesting to see how this all plays out, when it's going to be over, and what life is going to look like after this. Because I think even though most people think everything will go back to normal, I think we're going to have a new normal.
Yeah, I agree. And one of the new normals is the fact that Roy Williams is using technology that he never thought he would use before. We actually did a Zoom call with Roy a couple of weeks ago, about a 40-minute or so Q&A session, press conference, however you want to call it, a virtual press conference. And when he was on with Zoom, it had his wife's name where he was, because Wanda had to set it up for him, which is, I'm not making fun of him because I'm in that situation almost myself. My wife does it for me. But what's interesting is that this is a vehicle that Roy has been forced to learn how to use. And I thought it was really interesting, a piece that we ran Thursday at THI about Efton Reid, a 2021 big man out of Richmond, that part of the conversation that you had with him was about all these virtual visits. And I thought it was interesting because you said sort of like a teaser header that you think maybe would go well with the piece that said visits on there. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, nobody's really making visits anymore. They're virtual visits, which is very interesting. So you had a really productive conversation with him about the different virtual visits that he's had. And among them have been with Hubert Davis. I guess he hasn't talked to Roy so much, but Hubert, in fact, at UNC basketball is doing the virtual thing just like everybody else is.
Yeah, I mean, when we talk to him, I've seen the lingo from all the kids doing recruiting interviews now. And the new thing is Zoom, which we're actually on right now, right?
Yeah.
And then you have, you have FaceTime and you have Skype, and of course, you still have your traditional avenues of email, talking on the phone, and text messaging. But, these new Zoom or virtual visits are a new thing, and he's had quite a bit of those lately. So the thing about Efton Reid is he lives about 30 minutes from me, so I'm really close with him, his mom, the AAU coaches, the high school coaches, his entire family, and his network of people. He's always been a guy that we knew Carolina was interested in, but he really didn't talk about his recruitment. And we always run across those types of guys that really don't want to get into the recruitment. And maybe I don't get quotes from them, but I'll go to, the network of people I know and get some off-the-record intel. So we've always kind of known that Efton Reid's been on the Carolina radar, but they haven't been as aggressive with him as I thought they should be, because he's a terrific player. And now we see that, from calling him, we found out that Hubert Davis has called him, and Carolina says they're ready to step up.
Yeah, and so Carolina sometimes, and this is not a criticism, it's just an apt description, take a little longer time to enter into that next phase, stepping it up. The due diligence that the staff does is second to none, and that's a big part of it. So tell the people that are watching and listening, for a guy like Efton Reid, when Carolina steps it up to the next phase, what does that actually mean compared to what they were doing with them before?
Well, when they step it up to the next phase, they're going to be in contact more. They're going to push for visits. They're going to try to work the AAU coaches or the high school coaches or the kids themselves to get them down on campus. Now, Efton Reid has been to UNC before on an unofficial visit, but I would classify the recruitment of him as lukewarm to warm. And now it's getting a little warmer. I think Carolina, the fact that they're a blue blood and they have that national brand and they have that big man reputation of development will help them. But they definitely got some catching up to do there. So I think they need to step it up, and it's probably the right time right now to do so, because the kid's home He's still very impressionable. He's still waiting to see what this coronavirus does and how that affects everything. So we're going to look to see how much and how often they talk to him over the next month or two.
Well, if Roy is climbing Mount Rainier out in Washington, he's got his, whatever those little axe things are that they used to help climb up mountains. Who is higher up on the mountain right now with Efton Reid that he would have to pass by to be in position where maybe you look at them as a potential front runner for him down the road?
Great question. Love the way you worded that. I would say Georgetown is a little higher on that mountain. Definitely Ohio State, Louisville, NC State may be a little higher right now because they've done some more stuff with him. And I think Virginia is in really good shape there. In fact, he's got a tremendous relationship with those coaches. I think he said he did a Zoom session with Tony Bennett. You know that I love Tony Bennett. I think he's a great guy, great coach. He's so genuine and he's Christian. I think that UVA's done a terrific job with him. But I will tell you that when he talked about UNC, I didn't ask the question, but he brought up their tradition with big men. So Efton is really well aware of the tradition that they have, the success stories they've had, and how well they develop big man. And his buddy Armando Bacot, who he played AAU basketball with, is in Chapel Hill. So that helps too.
So what are some of his strengths and how would he fit in at a UNC?
Good question. I've seen him a lot. I've been watching him for about 2.5 years since he was a freshman. And he's a skill player. He's more of a finesse big man. He's got good touch, good feel. He's a good passer. He looks good in a half-court set, high post, low post, turnover either shoulder, good soft touch. Runs the floor okay, but he's not a floor scorcher like Tyler Zeller by any means, but he runs the floor okay. But definitely a high skill player. He's been compared to, I hate doing this because the guy's an NBA legend, but he's been compared in the way he looks, the way he moves, and some of his ball skills to a young Tim Duncan.
Interesting. I did a podcast a couple of days ago with Barry Jacobs, a legendary ACC writer, and he brought up Tim Duncan. And actually, I told a story afterward about when I covered Duncan a few times at the very beginning of my career. And one of the things I remembered about him is that he was a very different player when he was being recruited than he was by the time he got to the NBA. And even at the end of his time at Wake Forest, he's a guy that added so much. He wasn't a high volume scoring guy the first couple of years of Wake. He developed that. Do you see the potential to be a high volume scorer down the road with someone like Efton Reid?
I do. I think he's got to be in the right system where they work the ball through the bigs, and Carolina does that. He's got to get a little bit quicker. He's got to run the floor a little better, but his fundamentals and his footwork are so good. I think he's got the potential to be a Tim Duncan-like player, but I mean that's a ceiling, and that's an NBA grade. So I'm in the comparison out of a style point of view. I never want to say, hey, this guy is the next Tim Duncan, but he's got a lot of similarities.
Okay, what about reclassification? I know there's been a little buzz about him possibly reclassifying. I know that if he's not 18, he's not too far off from being 18 years old. So what's up with that right now?
Yeah, he actually brought that up, and he actually is 18. And I asked him, I said, I'd heard through the grapevine, a few months ago, and again recently, that you're still thinking about reclassing. I said, at this point, is that off the table, or are you still open to it? He said he was still open to it. He said that he hadn't made up his mind. It looks like the whole coronavirus situation just sort of has him sitting in a place where he really doesn't know what he's going to do. He will talk it over with his family, his mother, Maria, his brother, his coaches. He's got a tight-knit circle around him. He'll talk it over with them. I can't give you a percentage on whether or not he's going to go 2020 or 2021 because he was non-committal about that. And I want to be respectful to, not speculating on that as well, because it truly sounded like he was undecided. But I think if he were to go 2020, I don't think Carolina would be an option because they've already got Sharp, they've already got Kessler, they still got Brooks, and they still got McCott there. So I think if he stays in 2021, that would actually help Carolina.
So I don't want you to speculate on that. What else can you tell us about his game? And maybe I know that one of the things that you, for example, you really like Kerwin Walton. You said Kerwin Walton's the kind of guy that if he were to go to North Carolina, he would fit in really well there with the culture. And he sees the value of winning, wants to hang a banner, wants to be a part of something like that. When you talk to Efton Reid, does that kind of stuff come up? Because some of the programs he's talking to, like UVA and Carolina, I mean, honestly, is there a better program the last 5 or 6 years in college basketball in UVA? Maybe Villanova? I don't know. Does he discuss that kind of thing?
I didn't get into him on that, but I can tell you from a character standpoint, he's a good kid. And, I've told you off the record, some kids weren't good kids. He's a really good kid. He's humble. He probably wouldn't mind me saying he's a little bit of a mama's boy, but that's okay. Makes good grades, goes to a great private school, super respectful on the phone, very humble. Ask for your opinion. He's very coachable. Like, what did you think? Like, I think the first time I met him and I talked to him about his game, he said, "Well, what did you think?" And I thought that was a great thing to ask a guy who's scouting him and a guy who he knows can, help him with some exposure. But he's a really good kid, and I think he would fit into UVA, UNC, a lot of different programs where you have a strong character, sort of team.
Not that this is a Wake Forest podcast or anything like that, but when you said mama's boy, to me, the ultimate mama's boy I've covered in my career was Chris Paul when he was at Wake Forest. And I had during a sophomore year, I had a 45-minute sit down with him. And one of the first questions I asked was, so why Wake Forest? And he was from down the street. It was a local school, but Wake doesn't always get kids from that area. First thing he said, like immediately he said, "Oh, my mom's just down the street. She can do my laundry and she can cook dinner for me every night when I go home," even though he was living around campus as a freshman on campus. So being a mama's boy turned out real well for him.
It did. And, thinking about how you brought up the proximity from Chris Paul, who I think went to West Forsyth High School, if I remember correctly.
I can't remember exactly, but it was about 15 minutes from Wake's campus.
Funny story, I actually introduced Chris Paul to ACC fans. I watched him play at a tournament. Nobody had ever heard of him. And I called him a petite floor general. And I think he didn't really love the description of petite, but at that point, he was about 150 pounds. But speaking of the proximity thing, Efton lives in the Mechanicsville area. His school is in the west end of Richmond. So on the west side of Richmond, headed to Charlottesville, it's only about a 45-minute drive to get to UVA's campus. So that may be a selling advantage that Tony Bennett has.
Well, we'll see. We'll certainly check in about Efton Reid as we get into whatever happens this summer. Hopefully there will be some AAU stuff and there'll be some movement with some of these kids. If you haven't seen Clint's piece on our site, go to TarHeelIllustrated.com. We got the full piece on the front page right now. Ran it Thursday, and of course, this we're running here today on Friday. Great stuff as usual, Clint. You're always plugged in, and it's so appreciated by me and certainly by our many readers and subscribers.
I appreciate it, Andrew. Appreciate all you subscribers, and appreciate everybody listening in.
And if you happen to be watching this on our YouTube channel, go ahead and click like if you like this video, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you get updates anytime we load a video, whether it's football recruiting, basketball recruiting, Tar Heels football, Tar Heels basketball. We're all over it all the time. And if you don't know about our site, go to TarHeelIllustrated.com and check us out. You'll see Clint's piece on the front page, but you'll only see his photograph or his image if you continue to watch this video, which of course we know is a great thing, right, Clint? All the ladies out there?
I don't know about that. It looks like I got a farmer's tan from cutting the grass, and I think I put on about 5 to 10 pounds with this lockdown here.
You're not alone. I think everybody has. All right, for Clint Jackson, this is Andrew Jones. You've been watching another UNC basketball recruiting podcast right here on TarHeelIllustrated.com. Thanks for stopping by.